When I say Bruce was a fighter, I'm not saying that he was a good tournament fighter. I'm saying I'll put him against anybody, any weight division, any size, any background, and I'll put my money on him as a fighter.
What? He said he's put his money on him.
Well, Bruce, 135 against Jim DeMille, 225, Ed Hart, 240, 250, professional boxer, kill you with either hand, Jesse Glover, super athlete, judo, karate, all of us street fighters, Bruce could beat us all. And I don't mean it would be a struggle. I mean, he could beat us all and we didn't have a chance. This was in an actual fight situation where I tried to hit him. I tried to knock him out. We tried to hurt this kid because he was always embarrassing us in demonstrations and just in general. No, I didn't continue my boxing, in so much as that the things that I saw Bruce do or that Bruce could apply against me as a boxer sort of negated everything that I did. All the slipping, the bobbing, all the jabbing and combinations, all this, the concepts that made up boxing, none of them had any benefit.
It's right. You have an Air Force boxing champion say he stopped boxing to train with Bruce. What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to another React video. You saw the intro, you saw the title. Today, I'm going to be doing another React on a very legendary martial artist by the name of James DeMille. James DeMille was one of the first students of Bruce Lee, along with the likes of Ed Hart and Jesse Glover. And in this video, he talks about his time with Bruce Lee, how good was Bruce Lee actually, and some of the actual concepts Bruce Lee employed in his early days in the US in Seattle. So it's going to be a great, awesome video. And lastly, if you want to learn JKD, if you want to learn martial arts, you already know what to do. Hit the link in the description for my $5 course. Let's hop in the video. I'll be sure to link both of these videos in the link in the description as well if you want to watch them on your own time. But I reacted to two videos of James DeMille in an interview talking about Bruce Lee and all this good stuff.
My name's Jim DeMille. I teach a system called Jeet Kune Do, which is rooted in my time with Bruce Lee back in the early 60s. I'm kind of semi-retired now. I still teach, but it's more academic. I don't teach as physical because of an operation that I had recently. Jeet Kune Do is just basically the concepts and principles that Bruce originally developed for his own fighting system or his own fighting style. And so I just teach that people are interested in that specific period of time.
Yeah, he said it perfectly. I briefly got a chance to study some non-classical Kung Fu, and they're both similar in that they're both taken from the time frame Bruce in Seattle, you know, early days, you know, 60s, but still some very, very, very solid stuff, where both arts more focused on hand techniques, punching, trapping, immobilizing the person. Both very, very great arts. So I really do suggest to, if you want to learn it, you know, go find someone that can teach you it, that actually knows this, because it is very, very useful. And that I still practice these very same concepts and principles today because this stuff works. Because these concepts and principles I'm going to talk about in this video really, really work when you are in that trapping range and the guy's hands are up.
Well, I first got interested when I met Bruce Lee. I mean, talking about martial arts is Kung Fu or Karate, this type of thing. But I actually got into boxing a number of years earlier when I was in the military. And I boxed for 2 years in Alaska in the heavyweight. And then after I got out of the service, I went back to school, and in school met Bruce Lee. And that's where I started my martial arts training.
So he's being a little modest right there. One thing you're going to notice with all of Bruce Lee's students, most all of them were actual real fighters or street fighters. And what Jim DeMille actually did not mention is that he was the Air Force champion in boxing. Very humble, but he knew how to box. Let's just say he was the Air Force champion in boxing. He's very good, hadn't had a loss. So he was an actual boxer. That's the first thing I see a lot of guys say, oh, well, you know, Bruce Lee couldn't fight this and that's that. But the guys Bruce Lee was training with, they were actual fighters. And Bruce was able to show them that their stuff would not work against them.
I met Bruce Lee in the latter part of 1959. I started boxing in 1956, 57, right there. But 59, latter 59, I met Bruce right when he came from San Francisco. Just moved up and started school. Well, I was going to the school called Edison Technical School, and I had an open class where I wasn't doing anything for an hour. And I was going down the hallway and next to the auditorium, and I saw this sign saying Asian Day whatever. So different Asian groups within the city were doing different demonstrations and talking about their culture. And so I went in and just to kill time, sat in the back of the auditorium, and there were a few people up front. And I saw this kid up on the stage in this uniform leaping around like a frog, slapping his feet and spinning, and really looked pretty and making little funny noises. So after he was done, he started talking about this thing he called Kung Fu. And he was talking about it was a fighting art and it was a deadly art and blah, blah, blah. And he went on about the praying mantis and talking about different styles. And anyway, the bottom line was, is I was underwhelmed by this butterfly bug flopping around the stage or jumping around the stage was going to be effective against what I knew was street fighting.
It's like, I like it all right there. I mean, James, but he's telling the truth. He's being realistic. He's a boxer, Air Force champion. He knows how to box. He knows how to fight. So when he sees this stuff, obviously, he knows this is not realistic. It's not going to work. So I like he's being honest from the get-go and telling the truth. So it's very, very funny.
So he came down from the stage and was talking in this group, and I went up and started talking to him. Oh, I didn't, you know, I mean, I was just involving myself in the group. And I volunteered the thought that, well, kid, you're going to learn very quickly that fighting over here is real serious. We don't play this bug and butterfly game. Well, this, of course, drew his attention. And he said, oh, you know, he looked at me, and I was 225 pounds, and physically, I mean, you looked at me and you could see I could fight. So he said, well, why don't take a punch at me? Well, I was in my early 20s. There was some girls around, and so obviously my ego came into play. So I was going to show this kid, you know, hey, you know, there's a reality here you got to learn. So I took a jab at him. Bad mistake. Bruce does what you call, or did what you call trapping, where he attacks your hands. He doesn't punch your head or whatever. He attacks your hands so he can control anything you do. Well, I had never seen this before. It never occurred to me somebody was going to attack my hands. So I fired at him, and he engaged my hand, but not only engaged my hand, but he began to manipulate it in such a way as that as I tried to move, I was trapped. I couldn't move. And then he went up and he went, and he tapped me on the forehead and he said, is anybody home? Well, needless to say, I was exceptionally embarrassed, but it really, the biggest thing was I was humbled, because without a doubt, I was going to show this kid how good I was, how fast I was, and impress everybody. And this was my introduction to Bruce Lee. I didn't know who he was. I'd never heard of him. Never heard of Kung Fu. But I was exceptionally impressed with a guy who weighed 135 pounds, 5'7", against me at 225 pounds, a mean machine, and he just treated me like I was an elementary school kid. So I guess the bottom line is I had to either kill myself of an embarrassment or join and do whatever he did. And so I decided to join and start training, and that's how I started training with Bruce Lee.
So notice too, there's a few things with that. One, right, James Mao, actual boxer, 220, been in fights, tough guy. Yet again, he didn't mention that. He had been in a lot of street fights. And that all of Bruce Lee's students in the Seattle period were actual fighters that had been in multiple street fights that could fight. that he's saying that he tried to actually throw a fast jab at Bruce, and next thing he knows, his hands are tied up and Bruce is knocking on his head. It's a big takeaway that what Bruce performed on stage versus what he actually did were two different things. Because Bruce knew, the fanciness that looks cool on stage, that attracts the audience, that it's the spinning, jumping kicks and the crescents and all the nice stuff, is not what you do in real life. And in real life, it has to be simple and direct. Those are big, big key concepts. And so what he did to James was not what he did on the nice floor and jumping around looking very pretty. He did something very fast, efficient, and ended it. But with James, we're going to talk about more about how when the trapping hands is done correctly, like he said, he wasn't able to punch him. He's going backwards now, and his hands are tied to where he can't punch or defend. And now Bruce is able to hit him at will. So that is the very key concept of sticking hands, and that's something that both styles of Wing Chun Do, non-classical Kung Fu do work on, because it's very, very, very important.
He was going to the same school. We were both going to Edison. No, I didn't continue my boxing, in so much as that the things that I saw Bruce do, or that Bruce could apply against me as a boxer, sort of negated everything that I did. All the slipping, the bobbing, all the jabbing and combinations, all this, the concepts that made up boxing, none of them had any benefit.
That's right. You have an Air Force boxing champion say he stopped boxing to train with Bruce. How then would you have other people that have never trained with Bruce say, oh, he can't fight, and stuff doesn't work? Well, clearly this stuff works.
To keep against what Bruce had as just his basic system of his center line concept, his spring load, the way he trapped, everything was totally contrary to boxing and bobbing around. And so I very quickly threw out everything except as an opponent. In other words, when we trained, I would be a boxer so that Bruce or whoever I was working with could train against the boxer. So in that sense, I still kept some elements of boxing, but not as my preference for learning self-defense skills. He was not the athlete we knew him later on. He was very thin to me. He was almost skinny, very strong, but a wiry strength. He had little thin forearms that you couldn't pinch the skin off on him. That used to be a thing. He would not.
Wiry strength is another word for tendon strength. Something I did a lot of research on and stuff. That guys that are skinny, scrawny, maybe like myself, the tendons are why they're so strong. They can do a lot of push-ups or generate a lot of power. It's because their tendons are denser and stronger than normal, regular people. So that's why you can't have people that look skinny and like, how are they strong or how are they so powerful, but it's tendon strength. Something Bruce did, with overcoming isometrics. And it's also something you can have with genetics. Just genetics. You can have denser tendons. That's just genetics. You can have denser muscles just from genetics. So that's a big part to play too. But he definitely had some real deal tendon strength, and he definitely trained it in his life as well.
Up his hand and say, try and pinch my skin. And it was like trying to pinch a bowling ball. The skin on the surface. It was that, there was just no stretch to his skin. I don't think he had much endurance. He didn't ever train for endurance.
And that's very funny. I've also heard from people who train that when he would tense his arm, his forearm, you weren't able to dig your fingers in his forearm. It was so dense that it was like marble. You couldn't dig your fingers in. There was no give. And that's two things. It's training and genetics, I think. Just the muscle density that I felt some guys' arms, very few people do have this dense muscles. It's very tight, and you can feel it. And that you can train that somewhat, but also there is just a genetic factor where you don't have that dense muscles like that. It's hard to really train to get like that. but obviously it's going to help generate power and speed as well.
I don't think he had much endurance. He didn't ever train for endurance. Everything was in bursts. He was very, very fast, but it was because of his size and just a natural speed that he had.
It's very funny he said that, because at this time with trainer Bruce, this is before he ended up fighting Wong Jack Man, and during that fight, that was Bruce's main regret, was that he gassed out, that he was tired. He still won, he still beat him up, but that at the end he was getting tired, he was getting gassed out. So then after that fight, that's when he really prioritized fitness, exercise, endurance, cardio, running to upgrade that weakness. So it's very funny he said that. Because with Bruce's early fighting method, it really was going in fast and hard. Like, that was the thing, to end the fight in 10 seconds or less, go in fast and hard. And so with that, you don't need much endurance, because in most fights, he was able to end in a few seconds with these concepts.
I didn't think of him as an athlete at all because I never saw him work out. He never worked out with weights at that time. I never saw him doing physical calisthenics. I think he was in a period of time of learning. Whereas for condition, I was in pretty good shape because I had just gotten out of the Air Force. I was still working out relative to just a lot of drills I used to do for speed and coordination and footwork. Just because I was still of a fighting mentality. I didn't have a lot of endurance, but still athletically, I was pretty good shape. Compared to Bruce, we were probably fairly even in our condition because neither one of us were really athletes at that particular time. Whereas later on, Bruce, of course, began to seriously train physically. Whereas I never did. I was too lazy. I just kind of went to pot as I got older,
And yet that was because of the Wong Jack Man fight that he felt that he was not as fit as he could have been. So it's a big thing with Bruce. Whenever he did have a weakness, he would try very, very hardly to overcompensate and to make that weakness his strength. So that was the biggest thing. When in his early days, he didn't think about endurance training because, from his perspective, he won all of his fights in a few seconds, in 10 seconds, because he's able to just close this as fast, blast him, get in, hit him in the face, knock him out, hit him on the ground. I mean, to where he didn't need to have cardio to go for 2 rounds for 3 minutes, and he didn't need that. But after the Wong Jack Man fight, with Wong Jack Man running away the whole time, that tired him out. That tired him out. And made him see the benefits of being in shape, having good cardio, jump rope, running, and it's going to make you a better martial artist.
Well, when I think of Bruce and use the term fighter versus a tournament player, you have to look at why, and it's mainly because my experience with Bruce was as a fighter, as a street fighter. I was never a tournament player. All I knew was a fight. Now, I didn't fight relative to size and weight and division. It was a fight against person. Now, if the person was 135 or 335, it didn't matter. It was a fight between 2 people, and whoever was standing would win. Well, Bruce, 135 against Jim DeMille, 225, Ed Hart, 240, 250, professional boxer, kill you with either hand, Jesse Glover, super athlete, judo, karate, all of his street fighters, never been in tournaments. Jesse, of course, went into judo tournaments, but tournaments as we know them today. Bruce could beat us all. And I don't mean it would be a struggle. I mean, he could beat us all and we didn't have a chance. This was in an actual fight situation where I tried to hit him. I tried to knock him out. We tried to hurt this kid because he was always embarrassing us in demonstrations and just in general. Tournaments are a game. I don't care how good you are. There are rules. There are certain restrictions that are automatically going to eliminate the potential to really get hurt simply because it's a sport.
To me, I want to bring up too, he said it obviously perfectly. The reason why Bruce got students in Seattle was because he showed that he could beat him up, and he did. And then the guys were like, well, I mean, if he's that good, I want to learn. How did you do that, sir? Please, how did you do that? Please teach me now. I mean, he said it, Jim DeMille himself, Air Force boxing champion, undefeated. Ed Hart, professional boxer, kill you with either hand, fast. Yet again, Jesse Glover, judo champion. And judo's very aggressive, throw, art, grab. I mean, it's not point karate. Judo's legit, you know. Judo champion, karate. I mean, these were actual guys, with all of them that actually been in actual fights. Not just tournaments, no, real fights, real violence. And all these guys say that they cannot be Bruce. Bruce tore him up every time. That's why they wanted to learn from him. Before he was famous, before he was Bruce Lee, when he was just some kid with glasses. This is why, because they knew what Bruce had, it worked, it was legit.
To me, tournaments do not reflect at all what a fighter is like, or a fight itself, because most of the tournament fighters I've ever met have never been in a real fight.
You said it perfectly. Tournament, even in the cage, is 2-3 minutes, a few rounds. A real fight is 20 seconds, pure aggression, pure adrenaline, the person going all out for 20 seconds. That alone is totally different than the cage, or especially a point karate match. I mean, a real fight, the person is coming at you with everything, trying to hurt you, trying to kill you for 20 seconds straight with all they have. That is a fight. So that's completely different from a Chuck Norris tournament where they couldn't even hit each other, where they had to lock out and stop an inch away from the guy. Totally different thing.
It's always been tournament. So when somebody tells me, oh, Bruce Lee never proved himself because he never went into tournaments, I'm the first one to say, I would like to spar with you. Because you should be able to wipe me out really easy. Because if you're that good or you put that much on tournaments, I've never been in a tournament. So therefore I mustn't know diddly giddly.
I mean, it's true. And and I'll be honest, with most like karate tournament fighters, they can't fight. That's just realistic. They've not been in a fight. And I'm not saying get into fights. They're not saying that. But there's certain elements, concepts, principles that you would need for a real fight and to understand for a real fight. A lot of the karate stuff, under the way most people teach karate, would not work. Now, done correctly, it can work, knowing when to use it and how to use it. But a lot of these like traditional arts, that the tournaments they do wouldn't translate to real life, because real life, the person's gonna be bigger than you, stronger than you, and coming at you with everything they got, swing like crazy, and you don't know what he's gonna throw. You don't know if he's a wrestler or not. You don't know if he's a boxer or not. And so you have to deal with all that. You have to deal with all that. You don't know this guy could go for a double leg and shoot me and bam, and now I'm on the ground, Or he go for a kick in the nuts, he go for a swing, you don't know what he's gonna do. That's a lot of times, traditional martial arts, they always work off these blocks and stuff. And the blocks only work if I have an idea of what you're gonna do and you're far away enough to give me time to react. Like Jesse said a lot, very good martial artist, he would say that once you're in touching range, you don't have time to react. Once you're in touching range and the guy can reach out and touch you, if the guy swings with full intent, even if he telegraphs, you're not gonna have time to do an actual block. Because in real life, he's not gonna throw one punch, he's not gonna throw one lockout punch. He's gonna swing aggressively, wildly, and run straight towards you. And so a lot of the blocks and traditional stuff's not gonna work in that scenario. And that's what Jim DeMille was trying to say. I mean, tournament is far different from real fighting. Now, obviously, MMA and boxing are as close as you can get to real fighting because it's continuous, and you don't know what the person's gonna do. This is very good. But even that, even an MMA fight, it's still not what a real fight is like. And I'm not dissing MMA, obviously. I mean, I did MMA, I'm not dissing MMA. It works, it's good. But it's still not what a fight is actually like. In a real fight, I don't know what you know. You could be a wrestling champion. You could be a boxing champion. You could have a gun, you could have a knife. You could have friends. I don't know any of that. So it's a totally different mindset shift, right? If I do jiu-jitsu and I'm a black belt and I'm great at jiu-jitsu, but when in the bathroom there's pee all over the floor, I don't really want to pull guard and go for a triangle choke. So there's a lot of elements, and this thing is just different. Real fighting is different, and obviously don't do it, but it's different than a tournament or than a cage fight. It's just different. It can be scarier, but there also are advantages from having or being in a real fight scenario.
But my point to them is, I'm a street fighter. You want to fight me? Let's throw away the rules. This kid could embarrass me. So
that's one of the advantages. Just saying, in a real fight, it can be scarier and whatnot and all that stuff. But some advantages is that there aren't any rules. So if you're trained, you can go for the eyes, the groin, the throat. If you're trained on biting, and it's an art, you can go for a bite. That's the whole thing I go into later, but Paul Bunnik has a lot of good stuff on that. Kino Muay Thai, that's how it works. I mean, there's an art to biting. So you can do those skills to leverage if you're smaller and weaker than the opponent you're fighting.
Put your value on his ability through that, rather than how many trophies he had or what tournaments he went in. Give me a break, you know. When I say Bruce was a fighter, I'm not saying that he was a good tournament fighter. I'm saying I'll put him against anybody, any weight division, any size, any background, and I'll put my money on him as a fighter.
What? He said he's put his money on him. He said that, not me. He said that. And yet again, this is a guy that was there. Most of y'all are going to say, oh, this is fake. That's not real. That's not real. He trained with Bruce Lee. He would know. He would know. You not trained with Bruce Lee. That's the thing. He would know. He was there. He trained for years with him. He knew how he fought. He fought him. He's seen, James Mile, seen Bruce Lee in fights. Jesse Glover, seen Bruce Lee in real fights. Ed Hart saw Bruce Lee in real fights. And he saw how fast he took him out. So, at least before you go to the comments and say this is fake, think, well, you've never seen Bruce Lee fight in real life. These guys have. So at least take that into consideration. They were there and they knew how good he actually was. But it goes back to that. That's why, one of the reasons why he's saying Bruce Lee, 135 pounds, he could take on anybody. Because in a real fight, he can go for the eyes. And Bruce is very fast. So his finger jab close, nobody can stop. He was just too fast. So that alone is effective. Because once you hit somebody in the eyes effectively, 99% of the time it's going to end the fight right there. If not heavily stun them. And then once the guy's stunned, that's when Bruce can keep attacking, or he can bag out the kick. He can do a lot of stuff after that. But that's what I meant by, in a real fight, there are some advantages. He can kick to the groin, he can blast the kneecap, he can blast the shin. There's a lot of things he can do since he's trained. And so that's what he's saying, that's what he would exploit, because Bruce's fighting systems were always based around real fighting with no rules. That one thing Bruce did in real life, Bruce is gonna hit you first. He's not gonna let you hit him first, especially if you're bigger and stronger than him. He's gonna intercept you. That's another thing. Something that I've used and it works. Intercepting the guy before they're able to throw the punch or while they want to swing. Once you hit them and their head goes back, that jams their brain to where they cannot fully punch you now. And that gives you a second to keep hitting them or to bag up. And so essentially intercepting with a groin kick, intercepting with a leg kick to the knee, intercepting with a face hit or a finger jab, that stops the person from doing their next move. Even if they're a wrestler, doing a finger jab or a knee or whatever, intercepts them and jams their brain for a few seconds so that you can do something else or so you can get out the way. So that stuff actually works and is made for real fighting.
As a fighter, because I've never run across anybody in my life traveling around, and I've had some guys come in and challenge me when I'm doing seminars, and I just drove them into the ground because I'm Neanderthal.
And that's another thing too. Like you said, especially the Jeet Kune Do schools in the beginning, when Bruce was teaching them, and his students, they got challenged a lot, and they accepted them and beat the guys up because it works. Like it's different than nowadays. It's like, oh, you pay $500 a month to learn karate to get a cool gi and look cool. And so back then, it was okay. You said that works. Let's fight and let's see. Let's go. And the guy standing won. So with this, these guys got challenged a lot because, well, let's see if this stuff works, and it worked time after time again. So that's the thing with Bruce's arts, with Wing Chun Do, non-classical Kung Fu, Jeet Kune Do, all the good stuff. They prioritize real life fighting because it's for self-defense. And in real life, you have advantages. You can hit them first. You can go for the eyes, throat, and groin. You can use the trapping movements. There's a lot of stuff you can do.
Whereas Bruce didn't care whether I was tough and had this reputation. He had the beauty of the art of fighting, whereas I was the water buffalo mentality of attack and destroy. So Bruce introduced the art of fighting. And it isn't the art of tournament, art of games, or art of sport, art of fighting. Because he wasn't interested in impressing people other than he was standing and they were down. So all of his technique was geared for winning a fight, not points in a tournament. So I just am a...
And he's right, and this too he's like that because Bruce got into a lot of fights in Hong Kong before he even came to the US, and then got into a lot more fights in the US. So before he even met these guys, Bruce already had a ton of experience, real fights, real battles, to be this good and to know how to use this stuff under pressure, right? Bruce Lee couldn't have used this stuff and actually be effective if he didn't get into real fights. Yeah, that's how it is. I mean, you have to actually be in situations to actually understand what works and what doesn't work, and why it works as well.
I'm amused when I hear that. And I'm first one, like I say, to leap up and say, who said that? I'll spar with you. Because I should be nothing. Because I'll never get a chance to meet Bruce, but at least someone who touched hands with Bruce. So I should be nothing if they value that.
So that's it for the video, guys. Be sure, if you follow Wing Chun Do, non-classical Kung Fu, all those really good ones that are very effective, go look up, find who you need to find. I really highly recommend, they're really good arts. Obviously too, if you're following JKD, Jeet Kune Do, or other martial arts like that, then you know I have my course, $5 in the link in the description. Anybody can afford it. And lastly, put down in the comments what videos you want to see me react to, and subscribe if you like this, if you agree with me, and if you want to see more videos like this. That's it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Stay safe, take care, and keep training. Peace.